What's up, guys? Welcome back to the third episode of the Catalyst Conversation. Again, it is a podcast that we discuss with founders on everything and anything about startups, right? From fundraising to idea validation, as well as product market fit. So today, I'm extremely honored to have the founder and CEO of Cleave.ai, Ashwin. Ashwin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great, Ashwin. So, you definitely are a very famous person, I assume, and I'm very honored because, just for the audience sake, we we kind of like just met each other like 3 weeks ago, probably, through the talk that we had at Monash. So again, if you don't mind, to the benefits of the listeners as well as myself, maybe you can go through some of your background, your experiences, your startup, as well as some of your insights as well.
Cool. So I think I graduated in engineering a couple of years back. At that point, I guess while I was going to university, I had this kind of interest and curiosity around startups and the whole tech world, right? The engineering that I was doing was mechanical engineering, not software engineering anyway.
Wow.
So I didn't have much context about software and how it works and how tech companies are built. But while I was studying, I started joining some student organizations and stuff, which are around entrepreneurship and startups. And I started to kind of understand the space a lot better. So how like funding works, how I guess startup ideas can come to life, and who are the players like Y Combinator, and where can you get knowledge around the startup ecosystem and stuff. And I think I was just following my curiosities largely. I didn't think of like becoming a founder anytime soon. My plan was like graduate, go straight into corporate, and just be an engineer for a number of years. But in my final year, I think I started some side hustles. I started doing some business, and I started seeing how this is actually a pretty interesting path. It can be quite fun, because I have the, creative freedom to do lots of different things. Then I realized that, okay, maybe instead of going the conventional path and graduating and like working for a while, why not give this startup thing a try and try setting up a business? So after I graduated, I did work at another startup first to get some experience. And I was working there for about a year, where I was doing growth at a food delivery startup. And then after that, I went on to start my agency, where I was helping founders and CEOs build their brands. And then now I'm building Cleave, which is an AI tool that helps people create content for their personal brands.
Cool. So I'm curious, you, as you mentioned, you have really, thought like, prepare a pathway, as a mechanical engineer, and then you're going to work for corporate. So during your final year, and then you have this new, kind of like inspiration. So why business? Like, what makes you want to even try and start an agency that before Cleave? So maybe you can share some.
Yeah. So I think the thing that interested me about tech is like, growing up, right, we didn't have tech, like mobile phones, stuff. I mean, we had laptops and computers, which is cool. But then once apps started like being created, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that works. Like, at first, I didn't think of starting anything. It's just really being curious as to like, how do people build these things? And so when I found out that some people are actually really young when they were founding these companies, I was like, holy shit, that's something that young people can do. Yeah. I thought you would need to accumulate like 20 years of experience before you could even think of starting it. This which is kind of the conventional thinking, right? Get your experience first for the first 20 years of your career, and then try starting something later, right? But then I guess the further I dug into this, and I realized that the rules of the game have changed a lot since tech, and prior experience sometimes may not be like super relevant for certain niches. And also when you're building products, it requires a different kind of thinking. And young people can be like quite advantaged in a sense where our brains are still very, we haven't had our fixed set of structures. So you can kind of think of things in a different way. And I guess it's kind of like the benefit of doubt, where literally the benefit of doubt when you don't understand an industry very well. You have all these ideas of like, shouldn't it be like this? You're thinking from first principles instead. Like, shouldn't this assumption that everyone has about this industry that doesn't really make sense to me. Why don't we do the other thing?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I realized that, oh wow, so there's actually exists a lot of young people who are building cool things.
Yeah.
And the other factor for me was that I was 22 graduating. I have probably 40 years of my career ahead of me. So why not take a risk for the first 5?
Love it.
When I don't have a house loan to pay off and and I'm quite, I guess, in a good position, like a good amount of privilege to be able to do this. But like, yeah, like if I had an opportunity, and then I think it would be fun to try it out.
Yeah, and also wanted to add, I think the courage, probably the younger ones today, right? It's don't buy into the convention kind of mindset that you need to like work for people for, I don't know, 10, 20 years, with all the access and the resource that you have and the knowledge that you have is doable, compared to probably 20 years ago. So, and of course the courage really, because like you mentioned, I really like it 40 years ahead to work. So why not take 5 years to try something that you're really passionate about? So what happened? You started an agency, and then right now you, I would say you founded, and now you co-founded Cleave. So tell us the journey and why Cleave?
Oh yeah, so I think I've always been really interested in the creator economy content creation space. I was seeing how, a lot of the knowledge that I gained as well, like when I was trying to pivot from engineering into marketing or growth, was through people who were posting free content online, and super high quality free content.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube. And I've always felt this kind of like, I don't know, like I want to contribute to that. Like it seems like a really exciting space, because although they're creating content for free for anyone to access and learn from, in the process, they're also gaining brand value, and they're becoming the biggest authorities in their spaces. And there's a huge opportunity there for the business side, but also just genuinely for the mass market. And I've always believed that social media has democratized education at scale. It's the fastest way of delivering an idea, right? And I wanted to build in that space. So even with the agency, it was largely focused on social media for founders, helping people build their brand. And then for the AI tool, it's also about helping anyone kind of just start creating content, start building a brand, getting their knowledge out there. And I think that like the future of content creation kind of lies in lots of different people sharing their unique insights and experience. And that's going to elevate society much further than any other form of education reform. I've always been kind of very aligned to education. And I think this is kind of like the fastest and greatest impact kind of business as well. So I think impact has a side to it. I think money as well. I feel like there's a lot of kind of opportunity being created. And it like content is being a primary revenue driver for a lot of businesses now. Especially in branding, like brands are just churning out a lot of content, and that's why they're number one, right? So I do see kind of like both of those things happening at the same time. So it was an interesting space to tackle.
I have to say it's a really good product. So I did sign up and try to use a little bit. You're right. Content is everything. I run my own beauty business, and content is everything, right? And I think Cleave really does help, because before I get to know Cleave, I was using ChatGPT most of the time, and it just helps in terms of really create, helps you to produce a better content. So maybe for the benefits of the listeners and myself, of course, we talk about the journey of you founding Cleave, and also before we move back to the journey, and what the first few steps you do they have taken to really make this into from a concept to reality. But what are the difference? Maybe you can a quick one, a difference of a normal OpenAI services versus something that's like yours, created to help brands to build better content.
So I think I mean, in the AI space, you largely have the foundation models, and then you have the application layer.
Yes.
So like in our case, we're definitely in the application layer, and most companies that are being funded, most of the value that's being created today is within the application layer. So OpenAI's models are great. And I mean, lots of application layer companies are built on them. We do use some of OpenAI's models in our product as well.
Yeah.
And like in different parts of the product. And I think fundamentally it's right. So these models like GPT-4 and stuff, they're great. They serve, like if you prompt it well and stuff, you can get pretty good results out of it. But when it comes to specific use cases and actually solving customers' problems, for a lot of people, there are certain workflows, certain access to knowledge, access to information, integrations that needs to be built on top of these models in order to get a product that actually meets the demands of the use case. So if we're comparing, say, Cleave versus ChatGPT, for example, some of the big differences that you would see as you're using the product as well is that, then the content is generally, it sounds a lot more human. It's trained based on all your past data. So when you connect to your social media profiles, it scrapes all your past posts. It uses that as reference data for the model. And then even your target audience content strategy is kind of built up by the model itself. So yeah, think of it like basically every time you put something into Cleave, you don't have to do any prompting.
Yeah.
You just generate the content, you can just focus on your thoughts. And then, and we kind of built the whole user experience integration such that it's really optimized for content creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Your second question was on...
Yeah. So which is the one I'm about to ask is what are the, I mean, walk us through the journey and like what are the steps that you have taken when, for example, you have this idea, wanted to tap into AI and brand content creation, and then how do you actually, make this the whole Cleave.ai from just an idea, walk us through a journey to comes to fruition, right? So what are the initial stages and steps?
I think it start one step before that, right?
Yeah.
So before we had the idea, we had a list of like 30 or 40 different ideas.
Yes.
Of different things that we could build.
Yes.
In the creator space, in the business marketing space as well.
Yes.
And we basically just killed a bunch of the ideas, either through thinking it through, deciding that, okay, this is actually a problem that we're personally really excited about. And I think that's actually a big determining factor as well on which idea you pick, right?
Yeah.
Are you personally interested in this? Do you have specific expertise that could help to come to building this, right? In our case, we had about 3 years of agency experience working with personal brands. So we understood the problems. Like we've talked to so many customers at this point. Even before we started Cleave, we've already kind of done lots of these customer interviews.
Yes.
And worked with so many customers. So we understand their problems and challenges quite deeply, and we're able to kind of like just drop them a text too. So we have certain kind of unfair advantages to build in this space. And I think that's important, right? So we were picking an idea that, we had some unfair advantages to build in. And then I think the specifics around the idea, like how the app would be structured and all this stuff, we had no clue. So it was a process of just designing, getting feedback from people, iterating, to validate the problem. What we did was we built a fake website, landing page, and then we did a whole smoke test. So we sent it out to like everyone, posted about it, stuff like that on LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. And then a bunch of people signed up to our waiting list for a product that didn't exist. So we made a bunch of mock-ups and stuff like that. So that's also a way that we could figure out. And we did this a few times, right? So we tested with a few different landing pages and a few different copies to see what are people what's the demand like. And I guess when we saw that there was quite a lot of people reaching out to us as well, and then people signing up for the wait list. And then we did a couple customer interviews as well with potential users, as well as B2B users.
Yes.
And through those interviews, we found that, okay, this is the problem's pretty relevant to them.
Yeah.
They would want this solved. And they're already kind of using other tools in a similar way, but it just doesn't meet their needs, right? So I guess with all of that, that kind of gave sufficient validation for us to determine that, okay, this is the idea that we want to pursue.
Yeah. Stop you right there. So you're mentioning that, hey, you're technically gathering the feedbacks, whether from B2B, B2C, and then to know that, okay, these people, these are the common problems they face, and these technically your solutions for their problems, and they actually have been using it. So beside this matrix, right? So I take it as this is one of the matrix that you measure that your product works. What are these metrics that you implement as well through this process of validation to really determine that that these products will be able to solve the problems that really exist to the people today.
So I think it's changed at different stages of the company.
Yeah.
So right now we've already got our first couple like paying users and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So like I think at this stage it's more about what's our total sign up rate, what's the retention over the last 3 months cohorts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then where are they dropping off, what kind of activity and stuff. So we do monitor that quite closely. At the very earliest stages, I think it was largely more subjective. So like when we're interviewing these people who have signed up for our wait list, why do you sign up? What are you excited about? What specific problems are you looking to solve? So that is more on validation before we had a product, right? And we actually did that for about 2 months before we wrote our first line of code.
Yeah, okay.
So I know a lot of people tend to like, and even I used to think that, okay, the first thing we should do is start building things.
Yes.
But yeah, we spent like a good 2 months talking to customers, talking to people, maybe 2 or 3 months, before we wrote our first line of code and building up our wait list and all that kind of stuff. So by the time then our initial product was finished, we already had like, I think 300 or 400 people to just send it out to.
Wow.
And start testing it with actual users.
Yeah. Cool. So this is random people that give me feedbacks that you talk to 300-400. Those are the random ones that like you said, you build the mock-up, and then that's where
Yeah. So these were I guess it was a combination of like, warm networks, like your friends and like friends of friends kind of thing. And then because we were also posting on social media and like doing events and stuff like that. So then we would also get a lot of like cold network people. When we were in our initial iterations of the product, we would always enter the warm market first because you don't want to kind of screw up with strangers. But if your friends are like, okay, I know this is still the first iteration.
Yeah.
And then we slowly kind of expanded out.
So you built, you and your team probably built Cliff.ai from scratch. So what are the biggest challenge during this beginning phase, from besides this validation, but also building, the whole journey to getting these things actually, on live?
I think we spent quite a bit of time iterating on design because we wanted to make sure that, because like, okay, so in the AI space generally, there are companies that can really double down on the model training and like building large data sets and stuff like that. But our unique value as an application company is largely on the design, the experience. Is the journey, is the experience using the product as simple and as intuitive as possible. So we put a lot of time and effort into iterating on design and making sure the design is kind of like the best workflow experience that we can give to creators. And this involved a lot of research, a lot of understanding people's existing workflows. We pivoted quite a few times in the design process. So initially we wanted to do like a chat-based system, and then we realized that there were limitations in the AI models themselves, and also the interface is just not what people are used to. So we actually pivoted into a more note-taking direction, and that was literally scrapping a few weeks of worth of code. When as we were kind of validating, we realized that, okay, no, this is not the right direction. And I'm really grateful we did that, because like the current product, where it's a lot more like a note-taking tool, it just feels a lot more natural to people who have already been using Apple Notes or have been using note-taking tools. And then to create content, right? So I think a lot of like iterations on design.
Cool. If you can go back in time, right? What advice would you give to yourself? Let's say, how long has been Cliff already?
Oh yeah, it's been a year.
It's been a year.
Yeah,
so let's say
almost
2 years. You back to 2 years, ago. What's the one advice that you give to yourself, or perhaps to make it easier? Is that what's the one thing you would do differently, compared to the one that you did?
I think actually the number one thing is like actually not super technical, but be confident in yourself.
Nice.
And it's so underrated because like the thing with startups is you're dealing with so much uncertainty on a day-to-day basis. Like you have no idea whether this is the right product to launch,
Yes.
the right business idea to pursue,
Yeah.
right, or the right feature. But along the while, every time you have to make a decision with very little or no data, you basically have to try to trust your gut and intuition to an extent, right? The data and the questionnaires and surveys can help, but at the end of the day, you have to believe in yourself and believe in your own ideas, and also like believe in the decisions that you've made in the past. And I think over time, this like trusting in the process, trusting in your capability as well.
So in your experience, right? Maybe a follow-up question. In your experience, what do you believe are the most critical elements for early stage startups to success, right? To achieve a certain footstep, like they can come, from the idea to really a product.
Right. Yeah, I can't say success to the point of like getting $1 billion acquisition stuff because I haven't experienced that myself yet. But at least to get from idea to getting your first paying customers, right?
Yeah.
What I have realized is like initial product market fit is largely more about, or at least product market fit is as long as you've kind of listened to your customer enough and you're building a solution that solves their problems, and you show it to them, like literally just focus on one customer, right?
Yeah.
Like forget the market and the data, right? If you can make one customer really love your product, and this is something from Right Chess Key, right? If you can make one customer really love your product, then okay, you're going in the right direction. You've achieved product market fit for a market of one.
Yep.
And then you kind of expand out. So that you try to find 2 customers who are similar, who will also love this product. Then you find 10 and then 20. And this process kind of continues. So I think that's been our approach largely. So we would have like an ideal customer persona that we come back to regularly, and we're like on text message. Like we talk to them very regularly, especially once we start getting paid users. Like working with them very closely to kind of understand the problems at a deeper level and find potential opportunities. Yeah.
So based on your experience, what are the most, I would say, what are the common mistakes that found in that, actually they made? So maybe for me is that, yes, I really love the point that if you really, before just building, you have done enough survey, and you know that this is the problem that being faced, and it's validated, and hence why you build a product, right? So in my opinion, I feel like there's probably a lot of founders today is build first, I try to do marketing to sell more, then I spend more, right? So maybe perhaps to hear from you, right? What are the perhaps common mistakes do you see aspiring entrepreneurs or leaders or even founders today make when building their startup?
I'll talk about one more really common one, which is basically telling your idea to as many people as possible.
Okay,
that's something that, like, a lot of people are, and myself included, right? Initially, I used to think that, okay, I have this idea. Now I need to start building it stealth so that no one figures out and copies my idea before someone else makes it a $1 billion company, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think what people don't realize, and what I didn't realize as well, was building a company is so freaking hard.
Yeah.
There's so many things you have to do.
Yeah.
Which are hard things. And there are so many ideas out there. Like the 30 or 40 ideas that I talked about earlier were things that I came up with in maybe 2 weeks in a couple of brainstorming sessions.
Yeah.
When I was going through, products that I was using, where the problems that exist within those products, or workflows that I had specifically, where the gaps in those workflows. What are the challenges that I'm facing on a day-to-day basis as an agency owner, or as a student at the time, and also as someone who's writing and creating content, right? So yeah, like there are so many ideas out there. And if someone were to steal your idea, the amount of effort it actually takes to take that idea and build it is something incredible.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that that's going to happen. Even if it does, then it's super unlikely. And I think Y Combinator, they also shared before that too many founders are worried about competition. And the reality is, if you are, I guess, just focusing on the consumer and focusing on the consumer,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, and sorry, the statistic in the shared was like basically 0% of companies from IC have died because of competition. So most companies die for other reasons. And
Yeah.
it's much harder.
Yes. Yes.
I think competition does come in once you're like, you have 10,000 or 100,000 users, then
Yeah.
you may want to be a bit more like careful with what you share. But at the start, just share everything, get as much feedback as possible, like put all your guards down because
Okay.
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, I like it. I really like it. Good advice. So, guys, share it to as many people as possible, especially if you have an idea. So, mine, share a bit on what's next for Cliff. Very interesting. Like maybe you can tell us what's next in terms of development, the app as well as the portal that you have.
So we've launched a web app first. I think that also be kind of useful for people.
Yeah.
But instead of launching a mobile app, which is already which is our goal, mobile app development, and especially when you want to maintain the desktop experience with a web app, you'd have to push code on both sides. You have to change things on both sides. So it's a lot slower to iterate. So we actually went with web app first. And then we've been iterating on the web app multiple times, changing in UX, changing entire structures before, I guess right now we've got something that is more usable at least, and people are finding value in it. So now we're kind of confident to start work on the mobile app. So the mobile app will be coming in the next 1 month.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you ever... But yeah, like on top of that, I think we're going a lot deeper in this kind of second brain direction, where the problem with a lot of AI models out there, and the reason why AI is often not that helpful as we may have initially thought it would be, is because they lack context. And especially for creators and people who are creating content on their personal brands, whether that's business owners or service providers, right, and service professionals. The context is actually the biggest gap. So what we're doing is we're starting to go in this direction where every note that you say to Cleave, all the different kinds of like posts from your different social media channels, we'd be able to bring all of that into one platform. So we're able to build a personalized AI model that really is trained based on a lot of your past writing, a lot of your past ideas. It knows who you are.
Yeah.
And it's able to create content as a result and be a really helpful assistant.
Yeah.
And utilize lots of different information from these nodes. The utilizing part is a hard engineering challenge.
Yeah.
How do you pick the right information to use at the right time? That's the thing that we're really iterating fast on. Yeah.
Cool. So perhaps maybe for the benefits of the listeners, who does the coding? Do you do this coding? You have a team. How big is the team?
Oh yeah, it's really. And until today, we have basically one CTO, Russia, who does all the engineering work. Myself, and then Lizzie is our CMO. Yeah, CMO/CPO. Yeah, so she does a lot of product design and marketing. I do a lot of sales, etc. And then Russia does all the building. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Where can listeners learn more about Cliff today? Maybe you can, or connect with you.
Yeah, sure. So Ashwin Praveen on LinkedIn. I write there quite often. Ashwin Praveen on Instagram as well. And then on Cleave, I think probably the best. I think the best channels actually are personal brand channels right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to search for Cleave.ai and our website there is.
Awesome, great. So before we wrap up, perhaps the last question that I have is, what is the one key takeaway you hope that our listeners today remember? About building a successful startup, or maybe, coming from an idea to a actual product.
As much as possible, try to build in public. Share what you're working on.
Yeah.
Share like new features, things that you want to test out. The one thing that we've learned, I guess, the most is the community can be so powerful.
Yes.
They will help you see things that you could have never seen yourself.
Yeah.
And even with a small team, it doesn't really matter, especially when you have an army of loads of people out there who really care about what you're building and the work that you're doing. And I think that's what social media and creating content and building public can do. And if you're doing that in use Cleave for it, I guess creating content over my entire kind of like journey in business and startups and stuff has been such a huge it's created so many opportunities that I could never imagined. I actually found my co-founder Rashad on the CTO on LinkedIn. Oh, like I was posting about like we were looking for a technical guy. We actually didn't have a technical person in our team even after we were invested in.
Wow.
So I mean, we didn't make it clear to our investors that we were looking for someone.
Okay.
And like through creating content and posting, we found like Rashad kind of the ultimate.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy because he's a technical guy who's also a content creator himself. Like you've been posting on TikTok and Medium and stuff.
Yeah.
And like really aligned with the vision and all those kinds of things is really rare if you're doing a cold outreach campaign to a whole bunch of different CTOs that you randomly stumble upon someone who's really interested in what you're building. Right. And I think that's where just, building public, create content, talk about what you're building as much as possible.
Love it. Build public, build a community. Well, thanks, Ashwin. Very good insights. And thanks everyone for listening. So we wrap up and, stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.